I'm Sean Whitacre. I'm a senior principal with DAHLIN Group. Been with DAHLIN 21 years. Most of that time has been focused on multifamily design. Kind of the purpose of this panel is to discuss some of the success stories in multifamily design and development right now. Fully acknowledging that these are the outliers, but we wanted to look at what is positive, what is working. Everybody on this panel is actively involved with successful projects. So let's talk about what are the key points right now to make projects pencil, make projects move forward. And there's kind of 4 key categories that we'll cover with some of the topics. That is acquisitions and funding, construction cost, legislation and policy, and then location and design. And I'm especially interested in dialogue that focuses on creative collaboration. How can we work together in new ways? So that includes public-private partnerships as well as market rate and affordable partnerships. So I think this panel represents a lot of those areas really well, and let them introduce themselves.
Sure. Thanks everyone for having us here. My name is Daniel Bertao. I am the Vice President of Development with Ryan Companies. For those that don't know, Ryan Companies is a national developer and general contractor. We touch every facet of real estate development, construction, capital markets, operations, in all food groups of real estate, so senior living, industrial, multifamily. Multifamily is my specialty, and I'm active out here in the California region. We're currently very active as a multifamily developer and owner. We just listed a 480-unit deal on the market last week. We just finished that one last year. It's called the DAHLIN. We just broke ground about 2 months ago on a 278-unit deal down in Chula Vista, and we're currently entitling a couple sites in Southern California. So very active, and look forward to sharing more with you guys.
Yeah, hi. Nice to see all of you. My name is Seth Dorros. I'm the Vice President of Land Acquisitions at JPI, Vice President on the West Region. A little bit about JPI. We're a multifamily developer, primarily in the market rate space, but we do some affordable housing out of our central office, which is based out of Dallas. And then the West Region is based out of San Diego, and we acquire, build, vertically integrated. So we do our own design, development, entitlement, construction, and we're looking throughout Southern California. So we're in San Diego, Orange, LA, Riverside, San Bernardino, even up into Ventura.
Good afternoon. My name is Shonda Herold. I'm a senior project manager with Affirmed Housing. We're a for-profit affordable housing developer based in San Diego. But we build throughout the state of California. We have an office in San Jose. I work in the LA County area, and of course San Diego, as I just mentioned. A little bit about us. I think I said this already, right? We've been around about 30 years. Yeah, there we go. After lunch.
Yeah. Hi everyone, my name is Rob Warnaca. I'm the only non-developer up here. I'm actually a builder. But I'm president of GenCap Construction. We're based in the Seattle, Washington area on the east side in Kirkland. We are very active in market rate multifamily. That's kind of our bread and butter. We also do a lot of affordable senior living. We're in the education market and also TI, and we kind of rank or play in the top 25 GCs in the state of Washington by size. And so please forgive me if I may not be able to communicate like a developer could. Many of you are developers and want to hear, about return on costs and IRRs and all that. I'm probably not the guy that's going to help you with those, but I can give you my perspective from a construction standpoint.
Thanks, guys. So I wanted to focus on the money first, see if we kind of get straight to the heart of it first. And I'll direct this question to you, Seth. What's good to buy right now? What types of properties are you looking for? What's attractive?
Anything that pencils, really. I mean, the sad reality of it is primarily equity is on the sidelines right now. We, as I mentioned, we're essentially a production multifamily builder. So we're trying to find deals that we can close into construction, and right now that's incredibly difficult. I will say, though, that from an acquisition standpoint, and I'll maybe touch on this a little bit later, we're obviously looking at a variety of options in terms of product type, in terms of location. But this down market, if you will, has given us an opportunity to look in more core locations. The prior 2 years, we would have been more so out in Riverside County, San Bernardino, and now we're starting to see some opportunities in South Bay, Los Angeles, by way of example, places that are a little bit more core, a little bit undersupplied. And so this is really giving us an opportunity to look in those locations. So if I had to say what we're chasing right now, what we're looking for, that would be it.
What would you add to that in terms of what types of opportunities are you looking for?
Yeah, well, I agree completely with Seth. Capital's the most challenging aspect to get any deal done right now. And so we talk to our capital partners often, and right now they're focused on basis. And so lower basis deals, which automatically nix all your urban downtown sites, your high rises. Podiums generally don't pencil right now. So we're largely focused on grade deals, so 3 and 4 story walk-ups. We're looking in the suburbs, desirable suburbs for that matter. And in terms of the capital, we've pivoted a little bit. On the past 2 deals that we've capitalized, we've gone away from institutional. That's largely just been driven by the fact that they're sidelined. And so in one of our deals in Kansas City, we actually did a high net worth syndication. And then most recently down in Chula Vista, we went with family office to get the deal done. And so we're starting to expand our capital groups and talking to them to make sure that we're aligning the projects with where they want to be.
Seth, similar question. How do you attract capital right now? Are there methods, are there keys to getting capital off of the sidelines?
It's a lot, like what Dan said. We're trying to be as creative as possible, right? So from a transaction standpoint, which is the space that I'm in, we're looking to co-GP with other market rate developers on occasion. We're certainly looking to structure joint ventures with land sellers, come up with alternative sources. It's really the equity from our standpoint that is not quite there yet. They're kicking the tires quite a bit. They've shown a lot of interest, if you will, especially in those core markets, but we're still struggling to get the equity. The debt, the pref equity, mezz piece, actually we're not, there's no issues there. And we've obviously had 30 plus years to build those relationships, both in Southern California and in Dallas, so that's helped quite a bit. But from an equity standpoint, we're looking to JV, we're looking to partner with other market rate developers. We're looking in some occasions, if the site's big enough, of redesigning it to partner with home builders to lower our basis and structure those type of transactions as well. So we're trying to be as creative as we can, and we're of course doing friends and family if that's possible as well. So, but the institutional equity is really the key to all of this, and we all know that it's kind of still sitting on the sidelines.
Daniel, you pointed to a high net worth partnership. Are there other creative financial partnerships that you're seeing?
I'd say for us, it's on the capital market side, it's all about casting a much wider net than we used to. Again, all of our partners on our past multifamily deals were institutional groups, and it really hasn't been until the past 2 years where we've had to pivot. And we made a concerted effort early on to target private capital, whether it be through high net worth individuals, family offices, international money. Even on our deal down in Chula Vista that we broke ground on, it was a very favorable deal. What we did on that one was we found every opportunity to de-risk that for a capital partner. So we had a site that we had built 2 blocks away. It was, in our eyes, a rinse and repeat deal, same product type. We knew the market. We had live data in terms of leasing. Our general contractor, we're an in-house GC, so we knew every aspect of the project. We brought on the same consultant team. And even then, it was a struggle to bring on capital. Ultimately, we did get term sheets from institutional groups and one family office group. We chose family office because we're at a point right now where we're focused on diversifying our capital sources.
This Millennia Lot 19,
Correct. Yeah, this is down in a master plan development in Chula Vista, East Chula Vista, called Otay Ranch.
And can you just describe how many units and the typology?
Yeah, so it's a 278 unit deal, and it's all on grade, 3- and 4-story tuck under. So pretty rare to see that height, I guess, in a suburban location, but that has been that has allowed us to essentially get higher density in some of these more suburban locations. You sacrifice a little bit on the parking, but the Millennium Master Plan allows for lower parking ratios. So we felt pretty comfortable with a lower parking ratio. We still felt like we were hitting the market and not providing a product that was where we'd have to discount the rent because of lack of parking.
What was the density?
We got up to 43 units to the
Wow.
acre
Yeah.
on on-grade deal.
Shonda, in the affordable space, how are you overcoming the competition? Question assumes competition is one of the key challenges here.
So the funding structure we use, right, is mainly low-income housing tax credits, and you either have the points or you don't have the points, and you have a tiebreaker that scores well or doesn't based on historic data. So our work starts really at the beginning when we're doing site selection. Is it going to score well? Is it not? I think on our side, it looks more like advocacy, watching the regulations, making sure nothing sneaky gets in there. Working with our jurisdictional partners, our soft money lenders, to kind of nail down, as you mentioned, de-risking what that public funding stream looks like. Some jurisdictions like to change the rules every NOFA, and when you've got a site in pre-development and all the way through SDs and DDs, that's really problematic when they now decide they want 6-foot wide hallways or 10-foot wide hallways, and you've got it designed the other way around. So that type of thing. And then also, I think speaking to what you were just mentioning about debt and equity is, I took some notes because I didn't want to get it wrong. We've been looking at public-private partnerships with Metro, doing 99-year ground leases, cash collateralized bonds. And we've been talking to, and there's a nationwide REIT out there that is also providing equity. I guess they've done a couple deals in California, and so we're starting those types of conversations also.
Do you see opportunities for collaboration with market rate developers?
Absolutely. We've partnered with Pardee previously, and we basically took their inclusionary housing units and built them as part of a large master plan community. But we're absolutely looking to partner with market rate developers.
If you have an affordable obligation, you're looking for a partner to develop, manage,
Yeah,
be
we
experts,
can, yeah,
Shonda and Affirmed.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Happy to do that. We were talking about this earlier, kind of the nuances of leasing up and ongoing compliance requirements can be really onerous. So why not bring on a partner that has the expertise and does that all day long?
Yeah, we like that a lot on the market rate side. I mean, right now, capital's chasing every excuse possible to not do a deal, and size is one of those constraints. And so when we're looking at some of these 8-acre, 10-acre sites, it's just too large for us to tackle as a solely market rate multifamily deal. And that's where we can partner with a group like Affirmed and offload some of that affordable requirement to them. They can creatively finance that using affordable housing mechanisms. And then we can focus on more of a bite-sized market rate deal that is far more attractive to capital, plus it's 100% market rate.
Rob, let's talk about construction cost. What movement have you seen this year? How have construction costs changed?
It's not an issue for anyone in this room, right? It's totally low. Yeah, so I get asked that question a lot. I'll share with you my opinion and what I've seen recently, which is pretty interesting. So over the last 6 months, and this is from my kind of index in the Seattle area. But if you kind of looked at how costs were rising through 2021, 22, even I'd say costs continue to go up into mid-23, we're now back to where mid-2022 is. So I guess in regards to, has costs come down? I don't think it's really come down. It's flattened. And what's caused us to come back down to 2022 pricing, which I know is still not ideal, right, for developers that are trying to get their deals to work. But you know, we've seen a lot more competition. In July 2022, we were putting a GMP together on a 250 unit market rate deal, and we could barely get 2 plumbing bids. You know, that was just a crazy time. And now we've got a lot more competition. They're coming to the table, more willing to work with us on not just pricing, but scope of work and, you know, the teams that they're willing to dedicate to the project. And so what I see is margins have really come down in the contracting community because labor and material has continued to go up. You know, it still takes us 14 months to get electrical switchgear on site. The cost of steel's gone up. Of course, lumber's come crashing down. The random length lumber index in February 22 is up around 1,400, and now it's kind of floating down, back down around 400. So there's been some movement, you know, in the market, but really it's the margins are finally coming back down to reality. You know, a couple years ago, we were paying $14,000 or $15,000 a month to rent a tower crane, and now we're getting prices in the $9,500 or $10,000 range. So we just recently put updated pricing GMP packages together on 2 projects that we had also priced in mid-2022, and 2 other GCs priced them as well, and the feedback we're getting is the numbers have held. So they haven't gone up, but they're still right where they were, you know, kind of mid-22. And my prediction in the next 6 months is that we're gonna start seeing those later trade subcontractors come down a little bit as well. We're already starting to see that movement in MEP. The interior finish contractors still have a lot of work, a lot of backlog they're burning off, but that's gonna come to an end, and I think they're gonna start looking at their pipeline going, okay, what's next? And so I think the good news is we're not going up, we're staying flat, maybe come down a little bit more through the end of this year.
Do sub-markets or core markets make a difference in subcontractor participation and ultimately cost?
Not really. I mean, their costs are pretty static, whether they're doing a project in a core market, you know, around the Seattle east side where all of our tech company employers are, or on the south end. You know, maybe it helps a little bit. Most of the subcontractors, their workplaces, their yards, their warehouses are in the more sub-market areas, so maybe we get a little bit of a break on, you know, their commute, transportation time, stipend costs, that kind of thing, but they're pretty much the same.
What would we say about Southern California? Any differences from what Rob pointed out?
We're buying out a project right now, and so everything Rob said is spot on. I mean, costs are no longer doing that. They're more like that. And you know, a couple years ago, you would have to call a subcontractor repeatedly, and now they're actually picking up the phone the first time you call them. And so we're getting a lot of subcontractor responses on our project. I'd say the front-end trades are a little softer with their pricing. The back-end groups are still a little sticky. They're still working through their backlog of work. But if you can find some of those subs that are a little more sophisticated, forward-looking, they're recognizing that there is a huge drop-off in their pipeline of work. And so we're hoping that this is a great opportunity for us, and we're trying to capitalize on it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm on the acquisition side, so I don't know a ton about it, but I do know that you know, the pre-con team is not pushing back on us quite as much. They don't think we're as crazy with our assumptions. So to me, that means costs are stabilizing. In some cases, they are seemingly ticking down. We have a project, we have a 222 unit podium deal in Inglewood that we're building out, and I think the subs were a little hungrier there, so we've gotten some good pricing there. And then we have another South Bay project that's fully entitled that we bid out. Again, a couple $1 million of savings there on the cost side. So finally, I think we're starting to see some relief. Up until this point in time, we've seen none, and every kind of original budget that we had, the pre-con gave it back to us significantly higher than we anticipated. But now we're not seeing that quite as much. So I think costs are coming down a little bit.
Do you have any creative ideas, Rob? How are we pivoting, adapting? What are we doing?
Yeah, I mean, we're still bullish on the market, and we're investing in our talent right now. We actually our GenCap's looking at this time as an opportunity to become more efficient, improve, and hopefully find ways to lower cost further. So, you know, we're from an internal standpoint, you know, we're trying to improve the pre-construction process. I'm sure a lot of you in the room feel like you didn't get great pre-con support, you know, over the last couple of years because everyone's been so busy. So we're really taking a step back now and investing in our processes, using project management tools like Procore to document thorough constructability reviews. We have a detailed process on how we go through that so that we can offer more value in the construction phase with fewer RFIs, less change orders, better coordinated set of documents. And, you know, like our subcontractors, we're also more willing to work with our developer customers. You know, we've even made offers to put a little bit of equity investment into deals if that helps them, you know, launch the project. So we do whatever we can, as you know, within our ability as a general contractor. Some customers still hope that we can, you know, get 10% out of the numbers, and you know, the raw cost is still there. So I try to remind people we're really playing with margins, not with cost. But the good news is, you know, we've got good partners, good subcontractors who are willing to take a little more risk if we can help our developers get a deal to pencil.
Let's talk for a few minutes about legislation and policy. I mean, there's a lot of both local and state level push towards incentivizing housing. So how is this panel leveraging those opportunities? What programs are applicable right now and working for you? Maybe you start, Daniel.
Yeah, I think every project we are working to entitle or permit, we're putting an SB 330 application in immediately. The regulatory environment here in California changes daily, it feels like. And so to be able to vest and lock in under current requirements is critical and eliminates a tremendous amount of uncertainty. We focus a lot on density bonus projects. That's where we're seeing a lot of opportunity, especially with the waivers and incentives. And then down in San Diego, we look a lot at complete communities deal. I mean, City of San Diego's been a leader relative to finding ways to create housing and eliminating a lot of the discretionary decision making. And so those are a few of the regulatory paths that we've been exploring.
I think it's worth doing a little bit of a commercial for complete communities right now. Would you guys be willing to raise your hand if you're aware of the Complete Communities program? Say 10% of the room maybe. So San Diego has a pretty bold program in terms of incentivizing housing. There's streamlining, right? So you're already approved through CEQA. So you're essentially, if your site qualifies for complete communities, you're by right. You're what we call process one in San Diego. So there's no CEQA and there's no discretionary. There's significant density bonus. It depends on your mobility zone, but you can go up to like an FAR of 8. I have a site right now that's going from 10 or 12 DUA to an FAR of 8, which is essentially unlimited density. And with that, you get waivers and incentives and zero parking requirement. So it's like almost you can do whatever you want with housing on that site. There is an affordability requirement, but that's based on the base density, so not the post-density bonus density. So there can be a huge difference between the two. That same site that I was describing, you're entitled to 13 units, so you're obligated that 6 of them are affordable. We're doing 120 units, so it's 5% affordable with this massive density bonus and all the waivers and incentives. So it's an aggressive program, and it's making a difference. I think the point of this panel, we're talking about what's helping. I think that the City of San Diego does deserve some credit here for this policy. That's my commercial.
Well, and the City of San Diego adopted density bonus before the state did as well. I think, if anything, state density bonus is modeled after the program in San Diego. So you got to give a lot of kudos to what the City of San Diego is doing, recognizing that we have a massive
I do think it's a
affordability
model.
challenge.
The mayor's behind it. It takes leadership, right? I mean, along with the streamlining, he's telling staff 30-day turnover is guaranteed. So if your cities aren't behaving the same way and you get the policymakers' ear, tell them, hey, why can't you do it? San Diego can do it. And it's making a difference. Seth, you had an interesting take on density bonus and waivers when you talked.
Yeah, I mean, we're certainly trying to take advantage of all the state legislation. It tends to come with a little bit of a hook, right? Prevailing wage is one that they always throw in there. In this down market and an up market, we're always looking at that. From an acquisition standpoint, you're trying to analyze the property and taking advantage of any kind of legislation that you can to make these projects pencil. And they are penciling, and they're penciling better than they were 2 years ago, without a doubt. We're looking, our typical, absolutely right. Most places are looking at a 6.5, 7 rock. It's hard to get there, but that's still 100, 150 basis points higher than where we were 2 years ago. And so these deals work. They pencil. The fundamentals are there. We do play all the games where we're constantly analyzing, hey, is this a density, but we absolutely do density bonus, SB 330s, we have applications in right now. We've looked at SB 4, faith-based properties. So we are always looking at that in whatever market. And it just tends to be that even though these things are penciling, the capital is really the question right now. But this is there's no silver bullet. In my mind, I think the thing that you'll hear us say up here is that we're looking at throwing a lot of stuff against the wall, whether that's transactionally, whether that's using legislation, whether it's partnering with affordable groups, off-siting the affordable, we're looking at quite a bit on some projects, going to friends and family in terms of equity. So I don't think there's a silver bullet. Legislation is just one of those quivers, I guess, arrows in the quiver that we utilize. So absolutely, we're doing all the same things that Ryan Companies is doing.
We use it all the time. We don't build a project generally unless we can get a by right entitlement. Why go through the headache, honestly, if you don't have to? It does make CEQA and NEQA go away, if not a lot, at least make it a lot easier. The other state legislation was SB 4 that encourages participation with faith-based groups, with school districts. Affirmed is working with a school district in San Diego to get some of their underutilized land. And yeah, the densities and waivers are absolutely phenomenal. Setbacks, who needs them?
I think Shonda makes a point, and maybe this is what you're alluding to, is that we certainly take advantage of all the legislation. We still find at the end of the day on these projects that there's a pretty fair amount of CEQA abuse in the process. So we have quite a few entitlement projects. We get 2, 3, 4 years down the line, we get them approved, and then of course, everybody comes out at the 11th hour. So in my mind, even though the state has been providing a lot more in the way of legislation, they've, there's builder's remedy, there's all these additional opportunities for multifamily developers, for any type of a developer, to be honest. We're still getting to that finish line, and then there's still abuse of the CEQA process. And I think, in my mind, if there was a way to fix this and allow housing to be built, it's tackling that CEQA abuse.
Sean,
That's a topic for another.
I just wanted to add to, I was being a little bit facetious about the setbacks, just a little bit. But something else that what we're struggling with is there is no requirement for community outreach, but we are still going into neighborhoods, usually established neighborhoods. So we do want to be good neighbors. We want to, build something that's going to just enrich the whole area and help people, because that's what we do. So I think that is a double-edged sword that sometimes comes with the state legislation, especially in jurisdictions that maybe don't have the staff to stay on top of all the changes. We find ourselves having to go in and educate the city staff, and some of them are open, some of them are not. Same thing with community groups that spend 5 years on a community plan for their neighborhood, and you come in and you put a 5 or 6 story building where they specifically said they didn't want it, but we're allowed under state law. We own the property. So that is something that we are constantly kind of working with and trying to do it the right way, in a way that makes most people comfortable. But that just, I think that's just part of real estate development anyway. But
you mentioned the setbacks, and I don't want to take credit for this because Seth, you said it a couple days ago, that we will look at density bonus projects even if we don't need to use density bonus, simply for the waivers and I know for us, we're working on a site that is in a downtown location, and the zoning restrictions are just horrible. I mean, downtown sites should have no setbacks or very limited setbacks. This site, unfortunately, has massive setbacks. And so we're using density bonus to really maximize the opportunity. And at the end of the day, create a product that is appropriate for the location of where it's going. And so I think they're real valuable assets to density bonus, even if you could get the deal to pencil without it. The incentives and waivers are just absolutely huge.
I wanted to add to Shonda's point too. Legislation is happening so fast that often we're in a position to educate jurisdictions. And so we've seen more participation than we did in the past from land use council. I mean, as an architect, I'm interfacing with attorneys. It's not related to litigation, it's related to education. You know, just knowing about the latest bills, talking to the jurisdictions about them. Rob, what's different in the Seattle market, related to housing incentives?
Yeah, so, excuse me, we have, like you do, we have tech companies up there who are pumping some low-cost debt into the housing market, Amazon and Microsoft specifically. Amazon actually just a week ago, I think, added another $1.4 billion of debt commitment for affordable housing through their housing equity fund. And it's targeted around the Seattle area. I think it also extends to Nashville, Tennessee, and Arlington, Virginia, maybe, where they're pretty active right now. So a few of our developer clients have been investigating those. The feedback I'm hearing, if I get this right from my builder perspective, is that, it's low-cost debt, but it doesn't move the needle a whole lot, because although Amazon, Microsoft aren't looking for large returns, they do want that return back within a reasonable time. And so that requires a refinance of the capital, say 3-4 years out. And trying to project where interest rates are going to be, still makes it a bit of a burden. Those deals are also being underwritten no different than, any other deal. So they still have the same underwriting challenges that they might otherwise have, but it's still a positive. And I think it's so new, with our legislation and the private sector trying to work together, everyone's still trying to figure out, okay, the thought behind it is well-intended and it's making a bit of a difference, but how can we open it up a little more so it helps developers unlock their deals. And then we also, King County, which is where Seattle and most of the east side is located, they're putting a couple $2 billion of incentives in as well for affordable housing. We have 2 programs on the east side. It's called ARCH, Affordable Regional Housing, MFTE in Seattle, Multifamily Tax Exemption, and basically all the market rate projects do require, probably like you do, a certain amount of percentage of affordable units, inclusionary units that meet anywhere from 30 to 80% of the adjusted median income. So those are some of the programs that we're using up there in a different market.
Shonda, are you finding opportunities with underutilized sites?
We are. We look at infill sites all the time. Right, they're usually cheaper. We have a huge impact on the neighborhood when we do that, talking kind of about that goodwill, especially if you can get rid of undesirable activities occurring. So that's, your standard dilapidated gas station on the corner type of project site. But then also we're starting to, as I mentioned earlier, work with the faith-based groups, the school districts. There were changes to the Surplus Land Act that required public jurisdictions to offer surplus land to affordable housing developers first or very early in the process. So we are absolutely looking at all of those items. We recently partnered, I think, with MTS on a 99-year ground lease to do a affordable housing mixed use type of development. So that's been another opportunity.
Daniel, let's talk about design creativity, design efficiency, maybe millennia again. You know, what were some of the things that made a difference in terms of the design itself?
Yeah, I think everybody is trying to squeeze as much as they can out of the existing product types. So what I mean by saying that is, you know, your 2-story walk-ups became 3-story gardens. Your 3-story gardens are now 4- or 5-story tuck-unders. Your wrap deals, they used to all be 4-story wraps, and they went to type 3 wraps at 5 stories, and now we've created wrapiums or poto wraps or whatever you want to call them. And it's the same with it's the same with the podiums. You know, there were 5/1s, 5/2s, and now we've squeezed an eighth floor, keeping under the 85-foot height limit. So that's what we're largely focused on right now, is how we can be more efficient. Another buzzword that you hear in our industry is attainable. And so we are looking at ways that we can simplify these buildings to lower the construction costs. And that really entails just simplifying the design significantly. So, you know, my construction guys hate me because we have 50 unit types. And so, and that's largely driven by the site. And so the goal now is, what can we do to have 3 standard unit types? 1 standard, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom. All those units share the same kitchen type. All those units share the same bathroom type. I'm not sure we're gonna see the cost savings on the first deal. I think it's gonna require a few cycles in order to test this out. And I do think, though, you know, on that second or third project, you are gonna see buy-in from the subs, and you know, that efficiency is gonna finally play out in your hard costs, but we don't expect to see it in the first attainable project that we do.
You make a good point about, you know, it may take time for the contractors to feel comfortable that there's a real cost savings associated with things like fewer unit types. Rob, I mean, do you have any input on that? I've seen that happen exactly that way, where we design something that we think is going to be very efficient, simple to build. Probably it is, but are you seeing the difference in bidding?
Yeah, Daniel, you brought up an awesome idea and point. We're looking at that same thing, trying to develop our own design standards that where we know we can go out to market, we can get the best, you know, price on if your residential cabinet configuration looks like this, and your appliance package is that, and you know, just going through the whole list of items to at least provide our developer clients with an idea of, you know, when you ask us for a conceptual cost model, not only can we qualify like this is what we're basing it on, but if you want to go out, let us go out to the market and get that best possible pricing. If we kind of follow these standards, you know, we're going to have a much better success. And the subcontractors like us, they have more resource and time now to kind of dedicate. They're trying to help us find those savings, and so they're working with us to develop those design standards, and it's something that we think is going to be important. And let's face it, construction is an antiquated industry. We're still building buildings for the most part, you know, like we did 100 years ago, and we've got to, that's just step one, is trying to figure out how to get some modularity to our thought process so that we can kind of rinse and repeat and use the most efficient materials and the ways we assemble things, whether it be on-site or off-site, but still make sure the design teams have the ability to be creative and you know, put the value into the project and the design where it really makes sense.
So we're under 5 minutes. Let me ask a final question to the panel, and then we may have a couple minutes for questions. So other than interest rate, what key factors could directly impact construction starts in our sector? Anybody?
Dan, this one's on you. I think you're. Look, I mean, capital just has to come off the sidelines, so it's interest rate related, right? From me, I've been doing acquisitions for 20 plus years, and I love this period of time from a buying perspective, right? I mean, we already talked about rocks being significantly higher. There's not a lot of transactions in the market. Once that starts to happen, I mean, we've got BOVs and they're coming in and they're still much higher on the exit cap than I believe they should be. But once one of those dominoes starts to fall, I think then everybody's gonna come off the sidelines. And if you're not already in the game, in my opinion, you're kind of behind, right? To me, this is the opportunity, this is the time frame, so I'm pretty bullish on it. Obviously, I do acquisitions, and I'm hoping that the market turns pretty soon here. But obviously, it's all about capital right now, despite us tweaking everything we can on the transaction, on the construction cost side, schedule side. Now's the time, in my opinion, where everybody, it sounds like we're all doing this, we're trying to build more efficient. We're trying to be more efficient in our transactions. We're trying to be more efficient in using our legislation. We are certainly getting land use council involved now. So now is the time when we're really honing our craft. And then once the capital starts to free up, I think those who have used this time wisely to do exactly that are going to be ahead of the game. That's my own personal opinion.
Great, thank you.
I think that's a good question. I just want to share a quick story. So a few months ago, I was in Sun Valley, Idaho at a conference hosted by a commercial real estate broker. And so everyone there were developers, their clients, except for me, the contractor that's always kind of finds myself in the wrong room, I guess. But they had an online survey with a QR code. They were asking all their guests, including myself and all the developers in the room, mostly developers, what has been your highest year-over-year cost over the last, say, 3 years? And 94% of the room said insurance. And we were talking about that earlier, that insurance is sort of that other issue right now that not everyone talks about every day because we're so focused on interest rates, but we could see that being a bit of a challenge as well.
I totally echo the 2 seconds. The insurance thing, I was sharing with the group that when we underwrote a project I'm working on, we had $30K maybe for a perm insurance rate. We just went back and we looked at the numbers, and based on the current numbers we're getting now, as opposed to when we underwrote it originally, we're up to $80,000 or $90,000. And we're seeing a lot of hesitation in the market about PSH units, permanent supportive housing units, and just the ton of insurance claims that come with serving that population. And besides the interest rates and capital question, this staffing shortage is insane at our jurisdictional level. The city staff is taxed. It's difficult to get phone calls and responses from them, and I know that they're doing the best they can, but staffing levels at the local government level, affordable housing developers too, are looking for amazing staff to bring on board and help us through the stuff that we have in the pipeline. That would make a big difference.
Yeah, sure.
Any questions? Oh, here we go, right here.
So I have a question for Rob, but this question is really for anybody who wants to answer. The question really comes down, for me, it's about construction costs and particularly labor. So Rob, you mentioned earlier today that you're having trouble finding subs to bid on your projects. And I have a question about, do you see the construction labor supply expanding or contracting in the coming years? What are your thoughts on that? And if so, why do you see that trend?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I'd say the construction labor costs have continued to go up, or at least stay kind of where they were. No one's, taking hourly wages down right now. And as you all know, we were a complete labor shortage, when the market was really booming. And I don't really see that changing. I mean, right now we're in good shape to get started again, but I could see once things kind of settle down and developers are moving forward with their projects and all the contractors, there's gonna be a swarm of work starting, we could be right back to that same situation. And my opinion is we're just not doing a good job recruiting and promoting construction jobs down at the high school level, getting people excited about it. By the time they're in college, they're being told by counselors, et cetera, go into tech, work indoors, work remote, and that's just not a reality, for construction. So, and our workforce is aging. I think the median, age of a electrician is, 48 years old or something. So we need to be bringing in more youth into our industry.
Any other questions? Yes.
I didn't hear anything about kind of modular micro units or kind of type 1. I think you probably skipped it, Dan. But there's a certain part of California that's trying to kind of meet the market to get to certain locations and do, 400 units the acre. Just curious, the kind of the merchant builders don't play in that space,
We can't have a multifamily panel without a modular component to it. Does anybody want to comment on modular? Are we saving time? Are we saving money?
Yeah, we've looked into modular, and modular is not a new thing. I mean, modular companies have been around for 20 plus years. I remember being in college as an architect, and we explored a modular factory back then. The challenge with modular in California is that we have struggled to find room or places to establish those modular factories here. And then your transportation costs to bring something, say, from Arizona out here just become exorbitantly high and render it infeasible. So the cost savings aren't there. You may see savings on time, and given where interest rates are, maybe that is material. But for us, we just haven't seen modular being a good fit for our business model. In terms of micro units, again, we rely heavily on institutional capital, and the institutions just have not adopted micro units and lack of parking, and that usually comes with micro units. And so, again, that's just a different business model that we're not focused on. The units are getting smaller, though, which is nice. Full type 1 construction? Just, what do you mean, like 8-story type 1 construction? We're not seeing the savings. I mean, the concrete costs to do a 8-story type 1 are still significantly higher than a 5/3 podium.
We just priced a couple modular projects, around 200 units each or more, and Daniel's right, it's the shipping costs. Our general contracting scope outside of the modular units came in, I don't know, like $60,000 a unit, but by the time you added on the modular fab, shipping, and erection, it brought the whole hard cost back up to $280,000 a unit, which is about what our market rate, depending on project layout and underground parking situation, all that, that's where we kind of average in Seattle. So we didn't see the cost savings up front, but the build was 15 months compared to 26 months it would be in stick build. So maybe there's some cost on the debt side.
Do you have a cost difference number for, let's say, that 8-story building to go to type 1? The number in my head is like 10% more, 10 to 12% more.
I'm actually pricing it out now, so I can let you know next week.
We had one do that, right? We were actually forced into type 1 due to fire access issues. The only way to do a project was to go if we're going to go over 30 feet at all, it was type 1. So now there's not a limited 8 stories, so we're going to 14 stories, maximizing yield.
Yeah, Rob, you had said that you sometimes put equity into deals, and I'm just curious, are you rolling your fee, or is that new cash, or a combination of the two?
It's a combination of the two. We'll look at lowering our fee and deferring, a portion of our fee into equity, as well as making a cash contribution. And although the dollars probably aren't significant enough to, really move the needle from like an overall, the developer looking for, institutional equity and preferred equity, et cetera, I think where it helps is it shows our commitment to the project and to the schedule and the overall success.
Well, thank you, and join me in thanking this panel.